buy and hold investor here for a little over 3 years.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to day one of Blue Ocean Strategy. You have made it to the Leveling Up Book Club. In Leveling Up Book Club, we read amazing books that we can implement into our businesses. So this is definitely a book club for entrepreneurs. So if you're on Facebook, go ahead and click on the link. I'll share the link in the post, or actually Maya, if you could go put a link in the post on the group page. Please join us. This is an interactive book club. This is where we are going to discuss and strategize on how we can implement this book, just like so many others, into our business. So thanks to everyone who is joining us. We got a few new people. We got a few usuals. So I appreciate everybody showing up. In case you don't know me, my name's Chris. Call myself Cash Flow Chris. I'm in real estate. I sell. We have a company. Sorry about the noise. They're having a party out there. We have a buy and hold company out in Cleveland, and then we build single family homes up to apartments here in the Phoenix area. We do have virtual assistant services as well, which we'll go over. So if you need any help implementing anything that we learn here, feel free to reach out. So let me share the screen and we will get going. Again, big thanks to Maya for doing our slideshow presentation. All right, this is the Leveling Up Book Club. A few reminders before we start. We're going to be here every Friday, 10 a.m. We're going to be breaking this book into 3 different sections. So this week plus 2 more. Please have a copy of the book ready so you can review your notes for the discussion. We're always going to be here live on Zoom. We'll start posting it on Facebook as well, but it's better to be here on Zoom so you can actually participate. Because thoughts and insights are always encouraged. This is, we're growing together, guys. This is not me teaching. I'm reading this book for the first time, typically, just like you guys are. Show up and do the work, no distractions, and keep an open mind. So, Blue Ocean Strategy basically is real simple. We're going to learn how to shift from the bloody red waters, red ocean waters, where there's stiff competition, and move into the blue oceans where there's very little competition and much higher profit margins. Chapter 1, creating blue oceans. So as you guys who have read this know, they give lots and lots and lots of examples. Cirque Du Soleil was their main point in this book to show you kind of an example of what a blue market is. Cirque Du Soleil created an uncontested new market space that made the competition irrelevant. It appealed to a whole new group of customers, adults and corporate clients, prepared to pay a price several times that is a traditional circus for an unprecedented entertainment experience. It was a new market space. Cirque du Soleil succeeded because it realized that to win in the future, companies must stop competing with each other. The only way to beat the competition is to stop trying to beat the competition. So in this, they talked about how the circus space was kind of dying out. You had your animal abuse happening. It was very expensive to keep and feed and house all these animals. And it was just a super competitive space. So they, Cirque du Soleil, they got rid of the animals. They got rid of a lot of the things because they wanted to create a blue ocean. So to understand what Cirque du Soleil had achieved, imagine a market universe composed of 2 sorts of oceans, red oceans and blue oceans. In red oceans, they represent all the industries in existence today. This is known as the market space. Companies try to outperform their rivals to grab a greater share of existing demand. As the market space gets crowded, prospects for profits and growth are reduced. Products become commodities. And cutthroat competition turns the red ocean bloody. And in blue oceans, it denotes all the industries not in existence today. They are the unknown market space. Blue oceans, in contrast, are defined by untapped market space, demand creation, and opportunity for highly profitable growth. In blue oceans, competition is irrelevant because the rules of the game are waiting to be set. Imagine making the own rules for your game. And it is a game, guys. This is all nothing but a fun game. Companies need to go beyond competing to seize new profit and growth opportunities. They also need to create blue oceans. So a lot of us are in real estate. What is the red ocean of real estate? Why don't you guys give me some examples? So who here is a wholesaler or a real estate agent? Anybody?
I am.
So
Yeah, we've done some deals.
okay, so JT, you know, a lot of these other guys, you guys are in the most competitive market in the most competitive city.
There is no competition, Chris.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's the that's the mindset you definitely need to have. But all of us are like real estate sales. That's an extremely red ocean, right? Tons and tons of people are doing a lot of the same thing. What other businesses? Anybody else have a business other than real estate out here?
I'm in medical commodities.
Medical commodities. Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty competitive.
Yeah. Maya is in the creative space, right? So marketing, that type of thing. That's a very competitive space also. But yeah, I mean, most of us are in the real estate space. So I think this will be really good for us to kind of brainstorm and figure out different ways to do what we do. Turn this off. Okay. Value innovation. This is the cornerstone of blue ocean strategy. What constantly separates winners from losers in creating blue oceans was their approach to strategy. Sorry, my phone is blowing up. I gotta turn it off. All right. So value innovation is the cornerstone. The authors call it value innovation because instead of focusing on beating the competition, you focus on making the competition irrelevant by creating a leap in value for buyers and your company. Cirque Du Soleil offers the best of both circus and theater, and it has eliminated or reduced everything else. By offering unprecedented utility, it's created a blue ocean. It achieved, so let's talk about that real quick. So Cirque Du Soleil they were kind of their own thing. So while a lot of people were paying very high dollars for theater, and while all of the circus people were kind of the same, they differentiated themselves. So they are a less of a price than one of these high theaters, but then they don't have the crazy overhead of a circus. So they're able to kind of charge right in the middle. So they're creating value and they're different at the same time. Value innovation is achieved only when the whole system of the company's utility, price, and cost activities is properly aligned. It is this whole system approach that makes the creation of blue oceans a sustainable strategy. And lastly, value innovation is based on the view that market boundaries and industry structure are not given and can be reconstructed by the actions and beliefs of industry players. We call this the reconstructionist view. Who's noticing this in their industry? Who's noticing that everybody does everything exactly the same and there's the same rules of thumb, right? And then, so what do you have to do? So like a real estate agent, it's hard to differentiate yourself a lot of times, you know, everybody puts it on the MLS and we know that the MLS is mostly what sells properties. So how do you differentiate yourself? A lot of people, what they choose to do is they just reduce their price. And so they're offering kind of the same value, but for a lower price. Value innovation is created in the region where a company's actions favorably affect both its cost structure and its value proposition to buyers. Cost savings are made by eliminating and reducing the factors an industry competes on. Buyer value is lifted by raising and creating elements the industry has never offered. Over time, costs are reduced further as scale economies kick in due to the high sales volumes. Can anybody give me an example of this? A company who has come in, created a new, different commodity, and then they are able to charge, something that's just an outstanding value. What do you guys think?
I got one for you, Chris. I was just thinking of this Uber. Like if you try to pitch that idea before, like who wants to drive in somebody else's car? That'll never work. A lot of their initial investors were very popular business people, and all of them say they regret not being in there earlier.
That Uber is a great one. The industry said nobody would do that. But then secondly, the other part is if I want to pay to have somebody drive me around, like that's expensive. So they made it something new, and then they made it very, very cost effective. It's typically less than a cab ride in my experience. Good one. Anybody else? What other product is out there that's just an insane value where you're just like, why would you do anything else? It's a no-brainer. Who's got a no-brainer out there?
I think short-term rentals.
Airbnb. There you go. There's another one. They disrupted the industry.
Amazon for sure. I mean, I bought something not on Amazon a couple weeks ago, and it was like, it never got it. It was issues. Like, why would I not use Amazon? It's so much easier than anything else.
Amazon's probably the number one, right? Yeah. Why would you pay more and be inconvenienced when literally I can click a few buttons and it's here tomorrow? Amazon's a terrific one.
Zoom.
Anybody else got one?
I was just thinking Zoom, Chris. During this past pandemic, you see how much it's been used through different industries, and how many other competitors have sprung up in the last just 6 months.
Amazing that the other company, I forget what company it actually is, but they have the stock symbol Zoom. Everybody thought they were buying.
Oh yeah.
This Zoom, and that company like took off. Awesome.
The best pump and dump ever.
All right. Anybody else? This is good stuff, guys. I mean, and this is what I want you to think about. These companies thought differently. Amazon started out as a book company, right? And they're very far from a book company now. They just thought differently, where a lot of people thought, hey, that's never going to work. You can't afford that. They changed everything. YouTube. Daniel says YouTube. Anybody else? No worries if not. What do you guys think about this? The only way to beat the competition is to stop trying to beat the competition. Do you guys agree with that?
I agree with that. I made a shift in my business, wondering if that was the right move to do, thinking that I just got tired of like even thinking about competition, shifted to something else, and within a few months, it's paid off heavily. So I can say I 100% agree with that.
That's fantastic. So doing something that a lot of people aren't able or willing to do is a great way. So if you look at real estate, so a lot of us start out as wholesalers, right? Wholesaling really takes very little money. It takes a lot of hustle, and you can make some good money. You can create a complete business out of that. But then you can move up to rehabs. A lot of wholesalers can't afford to rehab. They don't have the resources or the know-how. So, you're getting a little bit further out of the red waters when you're moving to rehab. But of course, we all know that there's plenty of rehabbers out there. So in our business, we said, okay, there's too much competition here. Let's move to new construction, right? And because very, very few rehabbers do new construction. And then we looked at who is building. Well, it's big builders who are building for the most part. So why don't we focus on infill? What are they building? They're building really expensive properties, which good on them because they're making big profits too. But where is it an underserved community? You know, starter homes. Nobody's building new build starter homes, or very few. There's literally a handful of people in my city that do that. So then that's what we move to, right? But now we want to keep going. We want to be, why would you pick any other house when you can buy one of Chris's house, right? So now we're looking into modular. We're looking into building offsite so we can lower the cost and we can improve the value. We're looking at going green. We're looking at going with basements where they typically don't do basements here. So kind of just evolving into, you know, doing something that your industry, a lot of people, your people won't do. So that's kind of our idea. All right, any other comment? Let me read through my notes on here. I loved the Cirque du Soleil because, you know, everybody was just at the circus, you know, it was just a race to the bottom. And because of that, now they're treating their employees and their animals and everybody horribly because they can't afford to pay them. And it's just, you don't want to be in a race to the bottom, right? And so they created something different. And it was not theater and it's not the circus, it's its own thing. Has anybody ever been to a Cirque du Soleil?
I have. It's amazing. Like I would not go to a circus, and I'm probably not a theater, but like this was a blend of the two, and it was a lot of fun. It was like I was in Vegas when I did it, but I'll go back for sure. It was fun.
Think about Vegas. That's a great point. I mean, you have artists, you know, do you want to be the singer? Do you want to be the comedian? How many comedians are out there, you know? But you know, once you get somebody who does something a little different, Cirque du Soleil is different from all that. There's a million comedians, there's a million musicians, you know, there's all this stuff, but there's one Cirque du Soleil. You know, if you're gonna go do that, that's what you're gonna do. I think so. I don't think there's another one. Let's see. Yes, Las Vegas show. Daniel says he went and it was amazing. That's very cool. Hopefully one day we'll be able to go see that. Chapter 2. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me go back to chapter 1 real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything. In the book, they compared it to war. To focus on the red ocean is therefore to accept the key constrainment factors of war, which are what? Limited terrain and the need to beat an enemy to succeed. And to deny the distinctive strength of the business world, the capacity to create new market space that is uncontested. We talked a lot about value innovation. Value innovation occurs only when companies align innovation with utility, price, and cost positions. If they fail to anchor innovation with value in this way, technology innovators and market prisoners often lay eggs that other companies hatch. And then finally, those that seek to create blue oceans pursue differentiation and low cost simultaneously. Any other notes or anything on chapter 1 that you guys want to talk about? The Reconstructionist view, where in the red ocean, differentiation raises costs because firms compete, but reconstructing your business and doing it completely different. In the Reconstructionist world, however, the strategic aim is to create new best practice rules by breaking the existing value cost trade-off and thereby creating a blue ocean. Make sense? All right, chapter 2. Strategy canvas is what we're talking about in chapter 2. It's a diagnostic and an action framework for building a compelling blue ocean strategy. It serves two purposes. It captures the current state of play which allows you to understand where competition is currently investing, right? What is everybody else doing? Paying attention to that. The factors the industry currently compete on in products, service, and delivery, and what customers receive from the existing competitive offerings. To fundamentally shift the strategy canvas of your industry, you must begin by reorienting your strategic focus from competitors to alternatives and from customers to non-customers of the industry. Okay, let's talk, guys. We're all in real estate. How can we reorient our strategic focus from competitors to alternatives? So first, let's do the diagnostic. Let's talk about wholesalers or just real estate investors in general. Where do they focus? What do they focus on?
Profit.
What's that?
Profit. They focus on the profit aspect. If I buy it for this, I'm going to wholesale it for this. I'm going to make this.
Right. So everybody has a formula, right? So you have to, buy it 70% of value minus repairs, right? How many people have been taught that?
Yes, I'll go in known profit, something that they're comfortable with, that they've done before and repeatable.
Right.
So what we focus on is the problem, because if we can solve the problem, then the profit's going to be there. So we take some of the harder cases a lot of times, out-of-state relatives, lost relatives, properties that are difficult just because of what they are. They're not the popular property. But in the end, because of the relationship and because we're solving that problem, we tend to make a lot more money than the typical wholesaler per deal. And then we have the
how do you differentiate yourself, though? How are you different than Pat, if Pat's going and sending them the same letter? How are you different than them?
We actually don't send letters typically unless we just can't find the people that we're interested in the properties. We don't, we do driving for dollars and we do referral. So we do some lists sometimes, but not a whole lot. It's gotten to the point where you can just, as you morph, you can tell immediately as you're driving down the road, that's it, and there's so many houses that are in distress for one reason or another, so that's kind of how we work.
So that's a great point that you just said. You just mentioned distress, right? Mm-hmm. So how many investors are focused on a distressed property instead of a distressed seller?
Truth.
How many people are focused on an ugly house instead of a pretty house? 80, 90%, right? So just a few things to think about. Anybody else have a comment on that, or something that you've noticed within the industry?
I would say for me, I'm an agent with Keller Williams, and I love working where I work, but they also dissuade against wholesaling and investing. And I like where I am, but also I want to do more and be able to do things and not feel like I'm on thin ice, that I'm going to break a rule with wholesaling. So reading this book kind of made me think, hey, I'm having success at Keller Williams, but there's other brokerages I can go to where I can wholesale and flip and do all that stuff and have people that are like me and can also help me and guide me, rather than it being like, oh, you can't wholesale here, you're going to get in trouble. Just to be different than all the other agents that are doing the exact same thing.
Great one, Pat. So real estate agents, a lot of them are trained, if it doesn't fit in this box, I don't want anything to do with it. Wholesaling's illegal. Why would a person ever sell instead of putting it on it? Why would you never put on MLS, right? A lot of real estate agents can't even fathom why somebody would do that. And the answer is because they're embarrassed, or they need to close quickly, or one of a million different reasons. So yeah, being different, saying, hey, I have all these tools that I can help you with, can definitely differentiate yourself. And that right there will differentiate yourself, because what tools does a real estate agent have? They're gonna list it and try to sell it, right? What else can they do? Not a lot, you know? So yeah, being that person who has alternatives is a great way to go about that. Ty, did you have something?
I just wanted to bounce off of Pat, and just like I'm looking for real estate, you know, to be an agent as well, and it's what I'm looking for too. Someone that gives more leniency towards wholesaling and investing.
What state are you in?
I'm in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm sure Chris knows a good brokerage there.
Right?
Yeah. Steve Trang is a great place to hang your license up here in Phoenix. And I don't know if he does Tucson agents, but you know, you want a broker just to stay out of your business, because again, they have all these preconceived notions on what they think, but you're providing a huge service by doing that. So one of the major players in the Phoenix market, her name's Carol Royce. I don't know if she's still with Keller Williams. She was in Keller Williams when I was, but she is just a baller, right? She does hundreds and hundreds, and all of her advertising now is focused on we will buy, we will buy, we will buy. She figured it out, right? And so they're going to go and they're going to throw a number, you know, we'll sell it guaranteed or we'll buy it. Well, that sounds great, but of course they're going to buy it at a great price. They're not going to be paying, you know, fair market value. So again, though, she's different. How many people even have the means to offer that? So yeah, so go ahead, Nadine.
My husband Mike is a realtor now, and so we're a one-stop shop. So a lot of times if we go into a home and we're talking to, you know, the owner, they may say, well, you know, I'm not sure I really want to do this. I think I want to list first. And so we can offer them that as well. You know, he's with Real Broker LLC, so he can do his side of it and then I can do my side. So it works out really well for us that way as well.
Absolutely. And another thing, guys, I know they talk about it later in this book, but look for other industries. If you look at what real estate investors do, we're amazing. Like, we will hunt your ass down. So if, for example, life insurance brokers, right? If life insurance brokers hustled and found people the way that real estate agents did, it would be amazing. So I had a life insurance friend of mine, and he called me. We're not, you know, we're acquaintances. We don't talk very often, but he called me. He's like, hey, I know you sell a bunch of real estate. I was wondering, could you give me the names and info of the people who buy your homes so I could, you know, let them know about this product, that product, and the other product. And like, that's so crazy, like thinking so small when we know he could go pull a list of every buyer in the county. You know, he could skip trace him, he could SMS him, you know, he could do so many different things. But we have moved forward. So I really got to give a lot of credit to a lot of the young guys in the industry, the all-in people, you know, the Carlos Reyeses of the world. And I don't know if it's necessarily exactly them, but it's those young guys' mindsets. So they came in to the real estate investing world, you know, in the last 10 years, but they came in as young 19, 20, 21-year-olds. So they came in and they looked at it with a complete new set of eyes. I'm one of the old timers, right? What would we do? We would pull a list, we would send letters, we would door knock, you know, so it would take me months and months to hit thousands of people. They come in and they're like, well, why would you do that? They see things differently. So now they're contacting tens of thousands of people a day, and they have the systems for the intake. And you know what I mean? So the young people came in and changed what was really an industry that hadn't changed for probably 30 years. And now, if you don't do it their way, you're dead, right? So
true.
Yeah, so thinking about looking at it from a different perspective, and then looking cross industry wise, you know, what are they doing in that industry that would really work over here in my industry, and just be aware of that kind of stuff.
This mindset and taking massive action, I always say with a lot of new people in our industry, because you look at it, and I think Nadine said it perfectly. It's like, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing that's extra? You know, what are you doing that's different than anybody else in your market? Like for us, it was software. My dad and my best friend happened to be programmers. So I realized, oh my God, what are you guys putting everything on spreadsheets for? You know, or, you know, hosting stuff overseas. Well, yeah, you can have some front end costs, but you can literally outwork anybody else in your area. Just solving those problems that other people don't see as problems, and just taking the action for it. But to do that, you got to have that mindset. You got to be open, you know, willing to fail forward.
Yes, absolutely, JT. Good one. I just thought of another one as well. How about like the Robin Hoods of the world, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a fairly new company. It used to be, if you got into that industry, a stockbroker or, you know, a financial advisor, you're only dealing with wealthy people for the most part. You're only dealing with people who, and then you're doing it a traditional way. Robinhood lets anybody do it for cheap. You know, there's not all these crazy fees. So they
Cash
scale,
App.
you know, what's that?
I was thinking Cash App, Chris. Another one for POS. I mean, that's crazy. You know, under 1% on everything that you do.
That's thriving on people's about how people have zero patience in this world, right?
Totally. But it fixes the problem.
You can wait 3 days and get your money for free, or 1%, and I get it right now. Right? Beautiful.
Upsell.
Awesome. All right, let's move forward. I don't want to take all your whole Friday. All right. So we did this one, right? Yeah, we did this one. Did we do that one? There was 2 parts to the strategy canvas. Yeah, we did that one. All right, the 4 actions framework. To break the trade-off between differentiation and low cost to create a new value curve, there are 4 key questions to challenge an industry's strategic logic and business model. Number 1, which of the factors that the industry takes for granted should be eliminated? The first question forces you to consider eliminating factors. Number 2, which factors should be reduced well below the industry standard? Which means the second question forces you to determine whether products or services have been over-designed in the race to match and to beat the competition. Here, companies overserve customers, increasing their cost structure for no gain. And then 3, which factors should be raised well above the industry standards? So let's talk about this again, guys. Number 1, what are some factors that your industry does that need to be eliminated? What are people doing that doesn't really need to be done anymore? What's redundant in your business?
I've never been a fan of the mailers, the postcards. That I'll get 5, 6 a day. I even get them from people in our network sending to us from like our fourplex and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even look at it anymore. I'm just like, oh, well, there's your 30 cents in the trash. You know, I mean, I think that snail mail is not where we need to be anymore. It's expensive. I'm not willing to pay that expense for something that I'm just bothering people and wasting resources. That's my personal opinion, and that's what I've run my business on for 7 years. We write personal letters if we're going to write letters, and we don't do the mass advertising like some of the other people do. You know, I don't want to spend $10,000 to get 2 clients.
Right. So that's a great point. So industry standard is that a 1 to 3% response rate on mail is acceptable. Does that sound crazy? Because that's true. If you get 3% return on your mailers, you're killing it. What else? What else you guys got?
I think as a real estate agent, it's always kind of baffled me the way that agents advertise. They make it about themselves. There's big pictures of them, like from the 80s with old hair, and there's like a sign with them on it. They make it about them, not about the buyer or seller. That always kind of like, why are you doing that? And just like their business cards look like really old and like just about them, and like a closing gift. Like, why is a closing gift important? It's not. Like, the stupid things that like people think are normal because it's how it is, but like that's not how it should be, and it doesn't make any sense.
Great
That's
point,
the
Pat.
industry, right? Lots of people teach, hey, it's all about you. It's the Pat Barman team. No,
Right.
what's in it for me? What's in it for the seller? They don't give a crap about you. But so many of us think that. But some people will tell you that you're wrong. Some people will tell you if you're not the first one to come to mind, if it's not that, then you lose. So who knows? JT, do you have something?
I was just thinking that was a great point by Pat. I used to study marketing, and we'd go on these competitions, and they'd give us questions, and one of the questions was based on scale. And there's a big difference between things that work in a smaller office and then things that work in a large scale or corporation. And if everything is riding on you, it's not scalable no matter how hard you try. There's only so much that you can do personally, even with leverage.
Even with leverage. So the second question, which factors in your business or your industry should be reduced? What do they overkill on? What are we doing too much of?
Paperwork, I hate it. There's so much extra paperwork to say the same thing, or to add legal jargon to pay, like we have an in-house lawyer and we get away with so much stuff because he's not making us do something 3 times. Like we have a standard, an SOP for a certain contract or whatever we're using, so that we don't have to go back and do all these extra steps. It was the same thing when I was in the military. There'd be stuff that we did so effectively, and then there'd be other stuff that we would call government work because it had so many red tapes you couldn't accomplish anything.
There you go. Anybody else have one? Or number 3, which factors should be raised well above the industry standard? Where is the industry suffering? Maybe ease of use. A lot of people kind of went towards Zillow because they want to kind of do their own thing. They don't see a lot of the value out there. Technology has really lowered the value of a lot of what we do.
I'd say communication, Chris. I'm huge into communication right now because it has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't realize it. It has changed, and you can't fight it. You have to learn how to use it, or just raise the standard of communication, like doing personal conversations again.
Daniel says some title companies not understanding the investor side of real estate. They should make it an industry standard. All right.
Oh yeah.
To jump on to JT, I have to say, get the fear out of our consumers. One of the things I talk to them on the phone, or I'll text them, we're using REI Reply. And so we do a lot of texting, a lot of email. And what I'll tell them is, hey, let's meet. This is just a conversation. There's no commitment here. And just telling them that a lot of times makes them feel more at ease. And they're not as scared, because there's a lot of fear going on out there. There's wholesalers have made us look bad. Same with rehabbers, and so people are scared. We're sketchy, to them. And so we have to overcome that. So communication is huge.
Absolutely. And that's why investors and realtors can use all that as ammo against each other, Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Which factors should be created that the industry has never even offered? So this is where we're really going to get into, you come up with this idea, and this is where it'll completely change it and give you a blue ocean. When you apply the 4 action frameworks to the strategy canvas of your industry, you get a revealing new look at old perceived truths. The eliminate, reduce, raise, create grid. A third tool that is key to the creation is a supplementary analytic to the 4 actions framework called eliminate, reduce, raise, create grid. The grid pushes companies not only to ask 4 questions in the 4 actions framework, but also to act on all 4 to create a new value curve. By driving companies to fill the grid with the actions of eliminating and reducing, as well as raising and creating, the grid gives companies 4 immediate benefits. Number 1, it pushes them to simultaneously pursue differentiation and low costs. It immediately flags companies that are focused only on raising and creating, and thereby by lifting their cost structure and often over-engineering products and services. It's easily understood by managers at any level. Simplicity is the key, guys, especially as we get further into the future. I mean, you have to simplify things. And lastly, because completing the grid is a challenging task, it drives companies to robustly scrutinize every factor the industry competes on, making them discover the range of implicit assumptions they make unconsciously in competing. 3 characteristics of a good strategy. When expressed through a value curve, an effective blue ocean strategy like Yellowtail, they talked a lot about Yellowtail, the wine company. They had 3 complementary qualities: focus, divergence, and a compelling tagline. Without these qualities, a company's strategy will likely be muddled, undifferentiated, and hard to communicate with a high cost structure. Reading the value curves. The strategy canvas enables companies to see the future in the present. To achieve this, companies must understand how to read value curves. Embedded in the value curve of an industry is a wealth of strategic knowledge on the current status and future of a business. All right, let me break this down so I don't have to read so much. Let's see. So focus, divergence, and a compelling tagline. Those were the 3 main. It is the intersection between these analytic techniques and the 6 principles of formulating and executing blue ocean that allows companies to break from the competition. All right, so let's talk about this for a minute. All right, we went over those. So Yellowtail, what did they do? They created a new product that leaked into other subcategories within the same industry. So they made a product that was not, first of all, you didn't have to age it, right? So a lot of wine, you have to you pull the grapes today, and you're not going to be selling that bottle of wine for several years down the road. They eliminated that. They made it sweet enough to where people enjoyed it, and they wanted to have more and more. And then they brought in some ideas to bring in beer drinkers. So they expanded the amount of people who drink their types of wine. And then simplicity in offering only 2 wines. When they first started, they only offered 2 wines. So it streamlined their business model. It minimized the stock keeping units, maximized its stock turnover, and minimized investment in warehouse inventory. So think about that, guys. Imagine a company who has 20 different wines, you know, and maybe even 20 different bottle shapes. And they had 2. They had a red and a white. Real simple. And so when stocking on the store shelves, you know, they didn't have to decide which one were we going to put up. You know, if you send a store 15 different, you know, they're not going to put 1 of each. 2. They just did 2. They were the first company to put both red and white wine in the same shape bottles, a practice that created further simplicity in manufacturing and purchasing and resulted in a stunningly simple wine displays. So they were saving money. Everybody else is wasting money. You know, it's overcomplicated. And so they have to charge $30 for a bottle of wine. They have to charge $50. Instead, this company was able to charge $6.99. So Yellowtail appealed to a broad cross-section of alcoholic beverage consumers. By offering this leap in value, they raised the price of wines above the budget, which by pricing them at $6.99 a bottle. That's more than double the price of jug wine. So basically, in reality, they are jug wine, but they packaged themselves, they presented themselves differently, and they were able to get twice the price. Jonathan says, simplicity allows OE to master, then expand. Oh, it allows one to master and then expand. Absolutely, 100%. You got to get great at the simple basics, and then you can expand from there. That's a great point. Eliminate, reduce, raise grid. Go over that a little bit. You want to pursue differentiation and low cost. You want to flag over engineering of products and services. You want to make sure it's easily understood by managers. And then scrutinize every factor the industry competes on. I love that. I mean, scrutinize what other people are doing. Focus, divergence, and a compelling tagline. Without these qualities, a company's strategy will be muddled and differentiated and hard to communicate with a high cost structure. Focus. They talked about Southwest Airlines. They focused on friendly service, speed, and frequent point-to-point departures. So they also talked about Southwest, right? They changed the way things happen. So it used to be a hub and spoke, right? So you would have, everybody would fly into DFW. And then from DFW, you would go to your, your Austins, your Houstons, your, all these other small. And then, so they decided to be different. They go from point to point. So you don't have to go in. So they're creating shorter trips. And then they cut out the overhead. What was a lot of overhead? So a lot of airlines assumed that their clients wanted these crappy meals, right? Who's had an airline meal and you have 2 bites and you throw it away because they're disgusting? They're an airline meal. And so they were spending all this money for drinks and all this other stuff. And that's why they had to charge more. So Southwest comes in and says, hey, let's lower the overhead. Why are we doing this? Why are, same with their planes. They bought the same planes. They, so all their maintenance was less. And so because their overhead was less, they were able to charge less. People would rather pay less and not have a crappy meal. Go figure. Divergence. By applying the 4 actions of eliminating, reducing, raising, and creating, they differentiate their profiles from the industry average profile. So Southwest, again, we said went from point to point instead of hub and spoke. And then a compelling tagline: the speed of a plane at the price of a car whenever you need it. Who has a company where you just love their tagline, where it just rings? What's your favorite tagline?
Yeah, I can't even remember the company, but those guys that say it's your money or it's my money and I want it now. That just stays in my head every time I hear it.
It's my
I
money.
like Mazda's Zoom Zoom.
What's that?
Mazda with their Zoom Zoom.
Yeah, that was a popular one for sure. Any other taglines that resonate with you guys? No worries. Okay. Let's see. All right. I think we pretty much nailed that. Let's go on to the last chapter and wrap this up. So reconstruct the market boundaries. Chapter 3. The first principle is to reconstruct market boundaries to break from the competition and create blue oceans. This principle addresses the search risk many companies struggle with. The challenge is to successfully identify out of a haystack of possibilities that exist, commercially compelling blue ocean strategies. So there's 6 paths framework. These paths challenge the 6 fundamental assumptions, right? So all they're doing is they're looking at the fundamental assumptions and challenging them, saying, is there a better way? So companies tend to do the following. They define their industry similarly and focus on being best within it. Look at their industry through the lens of generally accepted strategic groups and strive to stand out with their strategic group they play in. Focus on the same buyer group, be it the purchaser, the user, or the influencer. I really like that one. Let's focus on that one. Define the scope of the products and services offered by their industry similarly. Similarly. I'm having a hard time. Next, accept their industry's functional and emotional orientation. Next, focus on the same point in time and often on current competitive threats in formulating strategy. So to break out of red oceans, companies must break out of the accepted boundaries that define how they compete. Number one, we talked about this. Look across alternative industries. What are other industries doing that can work in your industry? Anybody have an idea? An example of this where someone took an idea from another industry and merged it?
I would say the digital cell phones, when they started added cameras, Kodak invented that, decades before, but they are like, oh, this is never going to be used. It's stupid. We don't need it, and sold it off. And then now you see it, one of the most used features and one of the most used products around the world.
Yes, sir. Think about cell phones, guys. The phone is like one of the very few features that I use, right? I use internet more than I use the phone. I use text messaging more than I use the phone. I watch YouTube more than I use the phone. There are so many apps. If we looked at the 115 apps on my phone, the phone app is probably bottom half by far. I mean, that's me. I don't talk on the phone a lot, right? But it's a phone. But you don't even really, some people don't even use it as a phone. I have some days where my phone doesn't ring at all, which are fantastic days. But interesting. Path number 2, look across strategic groups within industries. Strategic groups refer to a group of companies within an industry that pursue a similar strategy. Strategic groups can generally be ranked in a rough hierarchical order to build 2 dimensions, price and performance, right? They want to be cheaper and better. The key to creating a blue ocean across existing groups is to break out of this narrow tunnel vision by understanding which factors determine customers' decision to trade up or down from one group to another. What are the groups in your industry? What do customers trade up for a higher group, and what do they trade down? Let's talk about cars, guys. Anybody give me an example? Who what car company sticks out and why?
Tesla, up and coming split.
Why is Tesla succeeding?
Well, it's a lot of the musky of Elon himself, but also understanding what the market wants. Not be some of these old car companies. I'm from Detroit, so I'm used to like 3 generations of working for these car industries, and they've gotten lazy. And he came in and changed, disrupted the industry. Said, no, people want these things. Listen to the market, and gave them what the people wanted.
Right? They took something that the industry said, hey, that's too expensive. It's it doesn't work. They don't last. And that's all they do. But what now? Tell me, what is the difference? Why do people love Teslas and they don't love Volts? Right? A Volt is an electric car, just like a Tesla. Right?
Well, my 2 business partners, they just both got 2 newer ones, and it was a customer service. One of them, like, Sam, he's like 6'5". So for him to sit comfortable in a car is a problem in itself. Not only did they get the measurements done in under, I want to say 24 hours, but they also went out and found a vehicle for him in 7 days. Like, that's unheard of for a custom built car. That's like a level of service that you get with a Bentley.
Right. Good one. Yeah. Let's also Tesla. So a lot of the car companies, I would say, they didn't even want to think about self-driving cars, right? If there was no Tesla, if there was no Elon Musk, for me, I'd say in the next 10 years, majority of us will be in self-driving cars. I could be wrong. But when would that happen if there was no Elon, right? If there was no Tesla to come and look and say, hey, why we don't even need people to drive these cars. Why are we having people driving these cars when people are the ones who are the problem? Right?
That's a good point.
Anybody else have a car company or another company that's in a big group that just they're just different? They differentiate themselves.
Yeah, I would say definitely Tesla sticks out. And like I read Elon Musk's book, and he like his philosophy, like rather than wait for like a new model to come out like a new year and then like charge more, if there's something new that they built, they just put it in the car. They don't wait and like upcharge. It's like he just has the best available technology when it's available. They don't wait till the next 2021 model. It's always the best car that they can make that they sell you. I think that's awesome.
And if you want to look at a company that is what is it, ready, fire, aim strategy, like that's Tesla, right? I mean, a lot of people say he did it on purpose, but his bulletproof glass got smashed, right? Like they had so many bugs and so many issues, but they don't care. They're just gonna go, look at this truck, it's fucking amazing, right? We're gonna do this. And so many people are excited about it. You know, of course there's things that they're gonna have to work out, but they just took the leap and said, hey, look what we got, guys. And people really responded to it. All right, path number 3, look across the chain of buyers. In most industries, competitors converge around a common definition of who the target buyer really is. In reality, though, there's a chain of buyers who are directly or indirectly involved in the buying decision. I like this one. Challenging an industry's conventional wisdom is about which buyer group to target can lead to the discovery of the new blue ocean. Many industries afford similar opportunities by creating blue oceans. By questioning conventional definitions of who can and should be the targeted buyer, companies can often see fundamentally. Guys, Fortnite, right? Epic Games. Who is the person who is actually purchasing, right? I am 42-year-old male, but am I their demographic? Am I who they're advertising to? Like, no, they're appealing to my 10 and 12-year-old. They're selling to them because they know they're going to come sell to me, right? So while I am their customer, I'm not their customer. Does that make sense? Anybody else have an example of that?
Customer versus consumer.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so the purchasers may differ from the actual users. And then in some cases, there are important influencers as well, right? That's another growing segment of our industries, you know, influencers. What are other people doing? What are the cool kids doing? Let's see if I had any other notes on that one. I don't think so. All right. Number 4, look across complementary product and service offerings. So few products and services are used in a vacuum. In most cases, other products and services affect their value. But in most industries, rivals converge within the bounds of their industry product and service offerings. The key is to define the total solution buyers seek when they're choosing a product or service. A simple way to do it is think about what happens before, during, and after your product. What is the context in which your product or service is being used? What happens before, during, and after? I believe they're talking about a gym in the book. They are talking about what happens before. They have to get ready. They have to drive to the gym, and then they drop their kid off at daycare, or they have to work with a babysitter. And so, just saying, hey, if they could just bring their kid with them, more people are going to do it. Does anybody else have an idea or an example of that? Like what happens before, during, and after? Can you pair a product? So another one, we're builders, right? So we said, hey, architecture they have to do architecture, right? This is something that needs to happen, and they want to work hand in hand. So wouldn't it behoove us to own an architecture company as well as a building company? And then if we're going to be building these properties, maybe we're going to have a sales company, right? So we can also help them on the back end. You guys, what are some things that people do in your industry before, during, and after that you may be able to work with? Any ideas on that?
Well, you look at wholesaling, Chris, and look at how many platforms have sprung up on the co-wholesaling aspect. So now you're united. Everybody's got product. Everybody's got buyers. But being able to move quicker and faster is where the move is. So everybody joining up together on these sites or these different Facebook groups and sharing the products that they have and exchanging, that way.
Great point. A lot of wholesalers, they have one deal or two deals. The 𝐂𝐕𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐆 of the world, they went and they're not focused on the motivated seller. They're focused on the motivated wholesaler. If they're taking something that they do great, which is they have, tens of thousands of people on their list, and they just know a lot of people, and they're nationwide, and they just make it easier for you. And most wholesalers are willing to, take a nice cut out of their profit just for that service. Anybody else? What else happens before, during, and after? How about a moving company? Right? What if you were strategically involved with a moving company, or if that was an additional service that you used? Because a lot of people don't think about what people need. So.
Yeah, I had a couple ideas when I was reading this. One is, because I have so many buyers right now that have kids, they're all like, my age, like 30, and they have like 1 or 2 kids, so they can't come to look at houses. So, hey, what if I partner with a babysitter, which is like, well, can I find someone that's reliable that would want to do this for $15 an hour? I don't know, but I probably could if I really wanted to. Like, hey, I can help anyone buy a house. Don't worry about childcare. I'll take care of it. Or what Nadine was saying, hey, she and her husband, like real estate, wholesaling, so they kind of work together, and they can either, hey, I can either wholesale it, or I can just put it on the MLS. So for me, I'm thinking, hey, I need to like really either partner with a wholesaler or like decide what I'm going to do, because it's hard for me to like kind of do both. I think it's hard to do both, for me at least right now, just independently.
Yeah. How about
a great idea for you, Pat?
Yeah.
We do a lot of JVing as well. So we bring a lot of money in through JVing, because we may have a buyer, they have the seller, we may have a property, but we don't have the buyer. So there's a lot of, you do this dance with everybody that you work with, and that's why you can't have competition. I mean, I've sent Chris stuff, and I'm all the way over here in North Carolina, not because I think he's going to come here, but because he might know somebody, or he may have an interest in it. I don't even know the area in Arizona, but I know that he's in our market, in that market. So, it's being respectful of everybody else, and making that special effort. If you see something, oh, wow, that's in Arizona, I'm going to send it to Chris. He may not care about it, and that's fine, but at least I let him know I'm thinking about you. I want you to be successful, and so I'm going to send you this. It's that relationship between all of us that is so important for our success.
100%. In the book, they give the example of NABI, which is, so it was a bus company, right? So there are companies that, have the big tour buses. And so the industry talked about how, it was such a low profit margin because why? Because the cost of the buses. So they made buses with metal, and because they made them with metal, they were heavy. They were hard on the all the other parts. And so they created a fiberglass version, and it talked about how they killed 5 birds with 1 stone. They made it they made it lighter, so it helped with preventative maintenance. It made it easier to drive. You could go faster. You could make the panels smaller, so you can actually make it a bigger, more luxury ride. So just while the industry is just like metal, 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 metal. Someone thought, well, here's something different. And they probably saw that from another industry, from another industry. They said, hey, they're using fiberglass over here. What if we use fiberglass here on what we do? Changed everything. All right, number 5, look across functional or emotional appeal to buyers. Some industries compete principally on price and function, largely on calculations of utility. Their appeal is rational. Other industries compete largely on feelings. Their appeal is emotional. When companies are willing to challenge the functional emotional orientation in their industry, they often find a new market space. Does your industry compete on functionally or emotional appeal? If you compete on an emotional appeal, what elements can you strip out to make it functional? If you compete on functionality, what elements can be added to make it emotional? Anybody have a comment on this one? What's sold on an emotion?
The news these days.
The news is certainly right. Why do we see all these crazy headlines? Because they want you to click on it. If you don't click on it, they're not going to make any money. So the more sensational, the more people are going to click on it, right?
I would say everything's bought on emotion, really. Like, people make their decisions based on emotions, not logic. So everything.
Right.
I would say your second purchase, like if you purchase something one time, you know what I mean? That could be necessity, not emotion. But if you go back and repurchase that, you had to have some sort of emotion towards that. Like, you either liked the product, it did this, there had to be something else towards that. To caveat on Pat's point.
Absolutely. Here in the book, it says industries have trained customers on what to expect. So when companies are willing to challenge the functional, emotional orientation of the industry, they often find a new market space.
The car dealers, man. If you walk in the car dealer, I walked into a car dealer looking at a truck. I came out with a Jeep. So
That's awesome, Ty.
So a lot of car companies, they came up with the no haggle, right? So they went to the emotion. What do a lot of people hate doing? They hate negotiating, right? Makes them sick to their stomach. So when you look at the face of it, their no haggle seems like it's, oh, this is great. I don't have to go negotiate. But what does no haggle mean? It means they're not going to lower their price, right? So while they're going in emotionally like, oh, this is going to be better, I'm not going to be hit by a used car salesman, over here, hey, they know what the prices they're going to get. Take it or leave it. And a lot of people are willing to pay it just because they don't want to have to negotiate. But I know we're all real estate guys, so we all love to go negotiate those deals. If you haven't read what's it called? Never Split the Difference. We did that last summer. We did that book. You got to read that book. It was amazing. And we'll do it again, probably sometime this year. Lastly, path number 6, the look across time. All industries are subject to external threats that affect their businesses over time. Most companies adapt incrementally and somewhat passively as events unfold. I mean, that's reactionary, right? They pace their own actions to keep up with the development of the trends they're tracking. By looking across time from the value of a market delivers today to the value it might deliver tomorrow, managers can actively shape their future and lay claim to a new blue ocean. 3 principles are critical to assessing trends across time. To form a basis of a blue ocean, these trends must be decisive to your business, and they must be irreversible, and they must have a clear trajectory. So on this one, let me go back real quick. So I love this one because it shows you how quickly things change, how markets change. So in this book, in this example, they were talking about music. They were talking about how everybody was on Napster stealing music. And then they talked about how Apple was so innovative and they started selling them for 99 cents each. And how that was a projectile, and that's how it was going to be in the future, right? How they figured it out. A few short years later, I don't know when this was published, that's not even true anymore. How many people pay for YouTube Music or Google Music or Apple Music? Nobody pays 99 cents for a song anymore. Nobody does, that I know. So in a space of 10 years, it's completely changed, you know, from one to another. So I found that really interesting that this book is already outdated. Okay. All right. So let's finish up real quick. Conceiving a new market space. So the process of discovering and creating blue oceans is not about predicting. Rather, managers are engaged in structuring process of reordering market realities in a fundamental new way. Through reconstructing market elements across industry and market boundaries, they'll be able to help free themselves from head-to-head competition. So a few notes on this one. So you can see on the chart the different ways that from head-to-head competition to blue ocean creation. We are already past our time, so I'm going to wrap this up. Again, thank you for joining, guys. Tell your friends. It's not too late. They can catch up for next week. Have them get the book and join us next week. I appreciate all you for being here. If you need any help with virtual services, definitely reach out to us and we can help with that. And anybody have any final notes on today's call? Awesome. So next week, we will be reading chapters 4, 5, and 6 and discussing. So I will see all of you next Friday. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks, guys.